Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General Milley, I've just got one more question for you about these many book interviews that you did. I Alone Can Fix It's one book, Perils, another book. Frankly, we did win this election. The inside story of how Trump lost is the third book. Seems like that's a significant outlay of time.
I don't think so. I think that
they were short interviews?
Relatively short. I don't think it took an excessive amount of time.
What was the time frame on these interviews for these three different books? These are, by the way, these are for folks who don't know at home. You said you didn't read the books. I don't think most people probably do. These are DC Insider tell-all type books. But what was the time frame, did you say, that you were doing these interviews?
I would say it took a couple of hours, maybe.
But when? What's the time frame? When were you sitting for them? Dates?
I can get you the dates. I don't know.
This year?
Off the top of my head, but I'll get you the dates.
2021?
Oh, yeah.
So it was this calendar year?
I think so, yeah, sure.
Well, I just am wondering, is clearly this was a priority for you. You did these on the record, by the way? All these interviews are on the record with these reporters? They quote you?
I do interviews on the record, off the record, and I do background interviews. And I do all of that with print media, television media, books, documentaries, all kinds of things.
I thought, why would you do background and off the record interviews? Background means you can't quote you. Background and off the record interviews if the goal is transparency.
The transparency goes to the fact to make sure that we are explaining ourselves and make sure that these authors have correct information. Let's take Woodward, for example, probably 200 people interviewed, and they approach my guys to say, are these facts true? This is what we heard. So we clarify and mitigate any incorrect information.
Interesting. Well, it's interesting. I mean, you're doing these interviews, you're doing them in 2021. It just makes me wonder, all of these different books, were you maybe a little distracted? Maybe a little distracted about what was going on in Afghanistan? Here's why I'm asking. General Miller testified to this committee that he warned about the rapid erosion of the military situation in Afghanistan as early as March of 2021. He further testified that he informed you about his view on this. He also testified that he said that the collapse of the Afghan security forces and the Afghan government could come very fast in 2021.
Hard and fast.
And he said that he informed you this. He also said that he informed Secretary Austin of this.
He did.
Now, at the same time, however, in June, you were saying, and I quote you now, an outright takeover by the Taliban is unlikely. That's at a Armed Services Committee meeting in the House, June 23rd. In July, you said the Afghan security forces have the capacity to sufficiently fight and defend their country. You also said that they were well equipped. On June 17th, you told the Senate Appropriations Committee the Afghan government had a 325 to 350,000 person security force, which we now know is a drastic overestimate. A few days later, you lowered that to 300,000, which we still know is a drastic overestimate. Your generals on the ground, your commander on the ground is saying one thing. The Taliban has a massive offensive underway from May 1st on, but yet you told us very different things in public. How do you reconcile those things? What am I missing?
Well, first of all, Scott Miller did say hard and fast, and he also meant that, at least to me and to others, that he meant that to be in the fall, October, November, maybe even December timeframe.
I heard you say that earlier. Yeah. I'm curious about that. I have to tell you, that wasn't his testimony to this committee.
Well, what he said in the committee was hard and fast. He didn't put a date on it. Is the readouts to me? I don't know. Did he put a date on it?
No, he didn't put a date on it. You put a date on it. That's what intrigues me.
But he did put a date on it with me and to us. And when pressed, it was after we leave. That was point one, which was 31 August, and probably into the October timeframe, maybe Thanksgiving. And that is about more or less where many of the intel assessments were.
He said he was a dissenter on the intel assessment.
That's right.
And he didn't put any of those qualifiers on his testimony to us. So are you saying he shifted his testimony, General Miller, that he wasn't?
No, I'm saying what he told me was it was likely to be in the October timeframe. The intel assessments are centering around November, Thanksgiving at the latest, Christmas. Some intel assessments went into the next year. Here's my point, Senator, is the intel assessments had two basic things, in my view, was the scale and scope plus the speed. All the intel assessments, all of us, got that wrong. There's no question about it. That was a swing and a miss on the intel assessment of 11 days in August. There's nobody that called that.
Well,
How do you
can I
know that
just,
Mark
General,
will
my
leave?
time is about, I appreciate that you've made these points. I don't mean to cut you off. It's just that my time is about to expire. I just want to say this. It seems to me that you put a high priority on making sure that you were favorably portrayed by the DC press corps. You spent a lot of time doing that. Fair enough if that's your priority. But at the same time, we had a rapidly deteriorating, frankly, disastrous situation in Afghanistan, which resulted in the death of 13 soldiers, including one from my home state, hundreds of civilians and hundreds of Americans left behind. And in my view, that mission can't be called a success in any way, shape, or form, logistical or otherwise. General, I think you should resign. Secretary Austin, I think you should resign. I think this mission was a catastrophe. I think there's no other way to say it, and there has to be accountability. I respectfully submit it should begin with you.
Senator,
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Expired. Senator Tuberville.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. General Milley, you've spoken today a lot about civilian control of the military. I appreciate the statements you made about that today. On June the 10th, though, I asked for formal questions for the record about Bagram Airfield, and I pointed out that having a major air base within 500 miles of both Iranian and Chinese borders would be a very strategically invaluable. I asked you about the feasibility of retaining Bagram Airfield as a U.S. base. I'm still waiting for a reply. I hope you do see today, ignoring, questions that might come up from civilian oversight sometimes backfires on you a little bit. You apologized for being late for your statement today, the hearing, but you just got to understand the pattern here. I heard Senator Blackburn say about the book, you got to see how dismissive it looks to Congress that you've had time to interview and do all these interviews, but questions aren't answered. So I'm just troubled by some of those things. And also, on August 18th, you said, quote, "There is nothing that I or anyone else saw that indicated the collapse of the Army and this government in 11 days," end quote. I find it unbelievable with your staff of 3,200 people and a budget of $419 million taxpayer dollars that we didn't see the obvious. But I do think you saw it, because July 11, 2019, you said, quote, "I think pulling out prematurely would be a strategic mistake," end quote. You said here today, and you also said that here today. You agree?
I 100% agree.
Thank you.
May I comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
On your first 2 points. On the intel piece, I stay with what I said. There's nobody called it 11 days in August. There's nobody who did that. And I brought the intel reports. We go into classified session. I'm happy to go over all of them. And on the first thing. And then the Bagram thing, I did put a very lengthy response in my written statement. I don't know if you had an opportunity to read it yet. I'd encourage you to read it. It is also something that General McKenzie put in his. And I can assure you that we looked at that whole Bagram issue very, very carefully.
Yeah. And here's what I'm struggling with. General McKenzie, 1945, we left Japan. They're one of our biggest allies today. We're still there. Germany the same way. Korea the same way. We had 2,500 troops. The war stopped in 2014, and we started what? Operation Resolute support. And we're having all these people cry, "We got to get out of here." Folks, we are going to pay for what we just did. I mean, I got young kids, y'all got kids and grandkids, and we're going to be back in there fighting. What's your thoughts about that, General McKenzie? And I know, we're not talking about the president. What do you think about the future of what we've got to do in Afghanistan?
So we have very few levers in Afghanistan right now because we've completely pulled out.
Will we be back?
I think we're always going to reserve the right to go in to go after ISIS and al-Qaeda targets as they present themselves. We've been very clear on that. And that's not going to be easy, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in the closed session. It will not be easy to do that. It will be possible to do that. As for larger engagements with the Taliban or whatever government follows them, I mean, that's going to be a hard road from where I sit, and I see a very small slice of that. That's really a question, for diplomats and others to talk about how our future relationship with the government as a whole will be. But I think my judgment will be they're going to regress significantly in every sphere of activity in Afghanistan over the next few years with the Taliban in charge.
We can afford to survive with our military. We got that kind of money. And it just burns me up that we're eventually going to have to go back there. We're going to have problems here. I I think we should have looked at it. I know President Biden wanted to get out. He told people President Trump wanted to get out. I disagree with it. I mean, we gave up the best base in that area, and it's just amazing to me that we're going to have to go back, and hopefully we don't lose it to China. What's your thoughts about it as we ended up here, Secretary Austin?
Well, I don't think it's preordained that we're going to have to go back, Senator. I would tell you that what you've heard us say is that we recognize that transnational terrorists will migrate towards ungoverned spaces. We also are committed to not allowing al-Qaeda to regenerate and be able to export terror from Afghanistan to the United States of America. And we'll remain laser focused on that going forward. And we'll do everything within our power to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Thank you. Could I ask you one question, Austin? Are you against dishonorable discharges to the military for not taking a vaccine? You're the leader of the DOD.
I am the leader, and again, we have a non-judicial, a UCMJ that really addresses all of the issues in the military and gives our leadership what they need to be able to enforce standards. Taking the vaccine is a requirement, and again, I'll just leave it at that.
Chairman, Director Wray, this is no time to mince words. The American people have lost faith in the FBI. All of our constituents are demanding that we get this situation under control, and we have to do that. That's our responsibility. This is not a political party issue, sir. This is about whether the very system of justice in our country can be trusted anymore. Without that, no republic can survive. See, the American people that we represent are losing count of the scandals that are mounting. The FBI has been involved. They've seen evidence that it's being used as a political tool of the Biden administration. They've seen counterterrorism resources being used against school parents, the homes of conservative political opponents being raided. They've seen conservative states being targeted over their election integrity laws, and conservative Catholics and pro-life citizens characterized as violent extremists. Just last month, as you know, former Special Counsel John Durham sat right in that seat and testified that the Justice Department and the FBI should never have launched the bogus Trump-Russia investigation. And his lengthy report reluctantly concluded that the FBI, quote, failed to uphold its mission of strict fidelity to the law. Just last week, NBC had a poll. Only 37% of registered voters now view the FBI positively. 35%